Today we're going to talk about the range blaster in Salmon Run. In this series I break down weapons and how to use them in Salmon Run. The videos are short and they don't cover absolutely everything about a weapon, I just aim to make you feel a little bit more knowledgeable when playing Salmon Run. Number 1. The range blaster is... wait, actually I am not the person to introduce this weapon. Hey, Prochara, can I get some help here?
The range blaster is a powerful but slow and ink-hungry weapon, boasting an impressive 250 damage direct hit in Salmon Run. Wielding this weapon can feel clunky if you struggle offsetting its lack of paint and slow responsiveness. However, its longer range and large area of effect gives it a powerful edge that allows you to hit multiple enemies at once and shoot from distance and angles other weapons can't.
Thank you so much, Chara. Number 2. As already mentioned, its direct blasts come in at 250 damage. It has a large blast radius which is extremely useful, and its indirect blast will deal 150 damage. It also has a splash radius which can inflict 75 damage on enemies as well. Compared to the regular blaster, the range's shots travel further before exploding. When firing continuously, it fires every 60 frames, which is once every second. This is only matched by the S-Blast in the entire blaster class. When standing, it takes 14 frames to fire a shot, and when firing from swim form, it takes 24 frames. The reason I mention these stats is to get across the point that the range blaster can feel slow, but more on that in a bit. Like other weapons in its class, the range blaster is ink hungry and recovers ink slowly. It has 20 shots per ink tank, but throwing a bomb only leaves you with 6 shots afterwards. Blasters don't often paint your feet well at all, and the range is no different. It's also worth mentioning that after firing, there is a 70 frame cooldown before the ink tank starts refilling. Mastering the range blaster involves understanding its ink inefficiency and learning how to play around it. Number 3. The range blaster is a solid boss slayer and can contribute to outright slaying or being there to help support taking care of bosses. For steelheads, it's 2 shots. You can kill it with 2 indirect shots, but it's better to focus on getting at least 1 direct hit at minimum to ensure it's fully defeated. For eels and scrappers, they both have 500 HP for their exposed parts, so 2 direct shots takes care of them. Slamming lids also have the same HP, so it's 2 direct shots for them too. Stingers are one of the easiest bosses for blasters to take care of due to their big AOE, and the range blaster can deal with them in 1 shot if you hit the right pot. Failing that, 2 shots is usually enough to quickly defeat them. The range blaster can one-shot fish sticks if you aim at them from the right angle. It's tough due to the nature of the weapon, especially when jumping, but the use of elevated platforms can help you. If not, they will take 2 to 3 shots, but they're worth dealing with as soon as possible as they'll prove dangerous to your movement. Due to their bulky HP, drizzlers and big shots can feel tough to take care of when using the range blaster. My recommendation here is to shoot torpedoes back when you can, and to exploit your AoE, as many different enemies can take damage with each shot. The main bosses that the range blaster will struggle with are bosses that require paint or bombs. Flyfish, moors, flipper floppers. Due to its inability to paint well and its slow ink recovery, you'll need to be careful when facing these bosses, as running out of ink can leave you in dangerous situations. For multiple flyfish, consider using specials. For moors, ensure you have a moment to recover ink. For flipper floppers, pray that your teammates will come to your help. But also the blast radius is big enough that you should be able to take care of them if you do it quickly enough. Number 4. Jump RNG on the range is one of the most punishing on any blaster in the game. When jumping, the shots can deviate up to 8 degrees from where you're aiming. What this means is that your direct shots might become indirect shots or miss completely. It's frustrating because jumping is a tool that the range blaster needs to use for movement and is a way to avoid attacks from lesser salmonids. If you just stand and shoot for too long, you run the risk of dying to several things such as missiles, rain and lessers. You also run the risk of being smacked off the map too. Jumping, along with squid roll and substrafing, are vital to smooth movement with the range, and the variation with the jump RNG needs to be taken into account when you're given this weapon. You'll miss a few shots, but thankfully most of the targets in Salmon Run are big enough that you'll either hit for an indirect or splash damage at the very least. Number 5. The AOE on the Range Blaster is huge and something that needs to be incorporated into the way you use this weapon. Blasters in general are high damaging weapons that require space and pacing to pull off. The range is the most clear example of this, but all blasters work like this to some degree. The range shines when you're able to pace your shots with your movement and follow up in fights that your teammates are having. The AOE clears or heavily damages enemies in its radius and allows a much quicker way to defeat certain enemies, most notably Lessers. A great example of this is during Glowflies or Rush. As the Range Blaster, you'll struggle up close against the Lessers, but from a distance and with some preventative work, you can clear the Lessers with minimal effort. The key is to create space by removing the risk of Lessers before they can get too close. This also works well in Grillers, being able to hit both the Griller and the Small Fry at the same time. Unlike PvP, you don't run the risk of unknown movement from enemies, which means that learning patterns and cycles of enemies helps the Range Blaster become extremely effective at predicting when to attack and predicting when to back off. One thing that is similar to PvP is that this weapon is a fighter and a slayer in Salmon Run, and Lessers are extremely easy to take care of if you take into account the weapon's weaknesses. Don't ignore Lessers with this weapon. Sometimes you'll be the only weapon in the comp with AOE damage and you'll provide invaluable assistance for managing them. Huge thank you to Prochara for lending me his time and his voice for the cameo. If you're uninitiated, Prochara has been one of the only voices for the Range Blaster for the longest time. Check out his channel if you're interested in top-level Range Blaster play in competitive Splatoon or have a keen interest in competitive Splatoon overall. Link to his channel is in the description. As always, thank you for watching and I hope this video helps you appreciate the Range Blaster a bit more. Just as a side note, the Blaster class are weapons that I've always struggled with in Splatoon, and it's only been very recently that I feel like I've gotten the hang of them, especially the Range Blaster. So don't feel discouraged if you find this weapon hard to manage. I did for the longest time. Growth in this game comes in different waves. I'll see you guys soon.